Friends that you keep are definitely a reflection on your standard and the standard that you will accept.
Everyone wants the village, but no one wants to be a villager.
You don't have to necessarily agree with their viewpoints, and having opposing or different views in a friendship group is in fact really healthy.
And if for some reason it's way more triggering.
Yeah.
When it's like your partner.
I could reach out to her, let her know how I feel, and maybe we can work through it. But like, is it worth it if we're just so different?
Hi, I'm Dee Salmon and I've discovered a new ick.
Oh my God. I haven't talked about Icks in so long and I have one as well. Please go.
I feel like we're bringing them back.
We're bringing them back.
More on that in a sec.
Against popular opinion.
Yeah.
Everyone said leave them in the past. We said no.
No, we're bringing them back. My new discovered ick is when people don't know how to tie their shoelaces.
Wait, what? Like a child? Who
No,
have
like
you
an
met?
adult.
Who have you met who doesn't know how to tie their shoelace?
Like an adult. Like when someone is like clearly really struggling. I saw a grown adult doing it the other day and then the shoelace kept coming undone and then they couldn't do their shoelace up and I was like, sorry, but that's fucking
God. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, new ick discovered. Hi, I'm Pip Rasmussen. I also discovered a new ick. You know when someone's drinking a glass of water?
Yeah.
When they're drinking and you can see their mouth as they're drinking and it's like open? I had this with someone the other day and I was like, oh, I'm going to be sick.
We can see their tonsils.
Yeah,
just
like I
dangling in
could
the
see,
back.
I could like see their like tongue and I could see their like
Don't.
teeth and they were like drinking the glass and I was like, I wish I didn't see that.
Also the glug.
You do that.
I do that. You hate my glug,
you
glug,
gulp.
glug, glug. I ick myself when it
Why do
happens.
you do it?
Babe, it's not my fault. It's how my throat is shaped. I've got a bony throat.
Anyway, the drinking of the glass, seeing the full glug, glug, glug. I was like, yuck. It was really gross.
I saw way too much.
Yeah.
I didn't need to know the back of your throat was purple.
It was weird. Anyway.
Stop. Okay.
We're talking about icks, but we want to talk about actually this new concept, friendship icks.
Which is why we said we're bringing it back. So if you don't know what we do here, this is the hookup. We talk about love, sex, dating, and relationships. And we have an Instagram account so you can DM us at Triple J the Hookup. And we ask you for, your dilemmas, anything that you're struggling with, anything you want advice. And we got this DM. They said, I have a few quote unquote best friends who have been big parts of my life for years now, and I still value their company and opinions. I know what the ick feels like from dating, and there are moments when I have it with two of my besties. Some icks are their political opinions, or in brackets, or lack of.
Oh.
And some icks are their lifestyles and attitude to work. It feels completely different to dating because they're already big parts of my life, and crucially, I don't need to fancy them. Is this a sign for me to make them a smaller part of my lives, or am I being too fussy by applying dating principles to them? I would miss them a lot, but I don't know what to do when they say something and the feeling hits.
So this is so interesting because I think we immediately went, oh my God, we have friendship icks too and we've felt this before. And what they said in this DM is like, do we apply the same dating principles to them? Because when you're like, oh, I would let my friend kind of get away with something or let this slide, but if my partner did it, absolutely not. And it can be reversed the same way.
Yeah, totally. You might be like, oh, I don't really want to be friends with them anymore, but you let the person you're dating get away with like so much shit.
Exactly. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to ask the question of like, do you need to hold partners and friends to the same standard?
Yeah. Find out what your friendship icks are.
Oh, yeah.
Whether they're like something that's been really small, did it end a friendship, or is it something like this person DM'd us saying political or like their attitude to life or their values?
Yeah. And we're going to find out whether or not we should hold our friends in the same standard as our relationships and vice versa. Should they be the same or are they completely different? Let's find out. So, of course, we asked you on our Instagram at Triple J the Hookup, have you ever experienced a friendship ick? 92% of you said yes. So overwhelmingly we have, and we had so many DMs on this, like genuinely huge amount. And this is going to range from really like small annoyances to like big major issues. So Ava saying always being late is an ick of mine. Bree, the obsession with male validation.
Tony saying using AI for everything and constantly sending AI vids to me thinking they're funny.
I agree with that. That's a huge ick. That's a huge ick. Actually, I have a friend who's doing that at the moment, who's just slipping in a couple of videos and I'm like, this is AI, right? Like it's not funny anymore. Like don't do that.
Harry saying table manners, licking fingers, and just in general being a grub.
Oh no, I'm definitely the person who's doing that. I'm the grub in the
I'm like,
friendship.
that's you.
That's me. Bridget saying being unbothered by global affairs. So many people replied when we reposted this and said, this is me. Tom saying being flaky, e.g. last minute plan cancelling and never being the first to reach out. I know so many people would relate to that.
Yeah. And I'm like, we've all done it. We've all had a friend. I feel like that really hits home. We've all had a friend that you just get so frustrated with because they never reply or they bail all the time and you feel like the friendship's really one-sided. But I'm like, we've all gone through periods with different friends doing that to them and them doing that to us, I feel.
Sophie, when they take ages, e.g. a week to respond to a message, I take it as a sign of disrespect. Jacob, leaving rubbish in a cinema because the staff will clean it.
Oh, yeah, that is ick. That is ick. Tara saying hyper-consumerism. Yep.
When people have like a million keychains on their bag now because that's like the new thing.
Or friends that like, I get such an ick, even though I know it's so hard because we live in this world right now, but like constantly buying from like those big chains that like just, you know, ship out heaps of stuff in plastic.
Yeah. There are so many different types of icks. And like we said, like there's a huge range of them, like from like really small minor issues to then bigger things. So when we look at like those kind of bigger ones that are like really driving a wedge between you and your mates, like we were like, what does that actually mean if you're like, I can't stand this person because of this ick? We had a few DMs from people saying their opinions on it. Marley saying, I feel like getting an ick equals outgrowing that friendship and the relationship is out of alignment.
Mitch saying friendships change when our values change. It's not a good or bad thing, but can definitely feel just as bad as heartbreak. This was a big thing in the DMs that we got, that a lot of people talking about friendship breakups and like what was the thing that kind of pushed them to end the friendship. I reckon we should do a whole episode specifically about the heartache of a friendship breakup and what things have made you not want to be friends with someone anymore, and also how they're so different from relationship breakups, because I feel like in friendships sometimes it's just a bit of a like slow ghost or a fade and you never really have the closure.
Yeah.
So I'm like, watch this space. I think we should do a whole ep on it.
DM us if you have a story and if you want to be involved. But yes, going forward on this podcast, like let's maybe think about the icks as slightly more serious, kind of like what Marley was saying, how it's like out of alignment. I think framing it that way.
And thinking about the DM that we got.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about like his icks being political standards,
lifestyle choices,
the way their work ethic, that kind of thing. Like when we think of those things in friendships that are giving you the ick and you're like, I don't know if I really align with you anymore.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I feel like a common DM that we got when we put this up on our Instagram was that people were like, your friendships are a reflection of you. And I've definitely had this with partners where I've dated people and I didn't really like their friends. And I was like, is this like a really poor reflection on you? Like, does that say a lot about you as a person? Nikki actually came through with an interesting voice memo to explain that she reckons friendships aren't always a reflection of you as a person.
I've just graduated high school, and in high school your friends are made from like 60 kids that you have, you know, to choose from. Your friends are made out of necessity and from a shared experience, and once you've left that shared experience you can take a step back and say like, is this really who I want to be friends with? And sometimes yes, sometimes no, but you know, gaining hindsight you can see like their flaws and stuff that during high school you would avoid to just like keep everything happy and avoid dramas and stuff. So yeah, since leaving high school, I would say that now friends become a better indication of who you are.
It's such a great point from Nikki, because when you think about it, for a lot of people, high school is genuinely just surviving. Yeah. It's, you know, keeping parts of yourself kind of hidden just to get by and not, you know, I feel like high school there's so much bullying and you're trying to discover who you are and there's a lot of pressure to fit in. And so, yeah, your friends might not be. I know for me, my friends in high school are definitely not a reflection of who I am now. And coming out of high school was that moment where I was able to go to uni and I met all these like-minded people and I was like, oh my God, I finally was like, fuck, I found my people.
Yeah.
And have been on that journey ever since.
Yeah. 100%. I completely agree. It was interesting. I think majority of people though were like, once you leave that space and you have more choice, depending on whether you were able to like get out of your small town and like move away or like find new people, generally they were like, you have a choice at that point, and you can surround people who reflect what you are as a person, your morals, your values, ethics, etc. Caleb saying friends and who you associate most of your time with are a direct reflection of you. Small minor icks aren't a big deal, but major issues could negatively affect others. That is a big deal. It was interesting though, because we got this voice memo from Mia talking about how she's like, yeah, my friends are a reflection of me, and I'm only keeping people who align with my values.
I keep friends who align with my beliefs. I like to keep open-minded people who aren't, racist or homophobic or queerphobic. And it's something that's really important to me, because I think if you can't be your most authentic self around your friends, then they shouldn't be your friends.
Love that. And John agrees. He sent us a voice memo, but with a bit of a caveat.
Friends that you keep are definitely a reflection on your standard and the standard that you will accept. One of my friends who I'd been friends with for 5 years, when the election was coming around in Queensland, we had very wildly different ideas about immigration policy, which in the 5 years had not actually come up or something that we'd spoken about. And it gave me an ick at the time hearing some of the things that they were kind of saying about immigration policy. And it really made me think about that relationship as to whether, is this someone that I want to keep in my life? But at the same time, I was able to kind of reflect and go, okay, this is someone that has a different perspective to me. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So one, I could learn from them to hear what their points of view were, but then also for them to hear the other side of things. Because if they're not hearing it from me, who are they going to hear it from?
Okay, I actually love that. And so many people in our DMs agreed. Like, there were so many of you who were like, diversity is so important. Lou saying, I have friends from all sides of politics, backgrounds, views, and I learn so much. Political opinions reflect the context we live. Don't let the friendship ick put you in a bubble. Haley also agreed with this.
Getting the ick from a friend is doing a disservice to both of you. You can appreciate one aspect of a friend and not agree with another opinion or lifestyle choice or something else about them. And choosing to not have that person in your life or disengage from that relationship based on an ick you got from something you don't agree with immensely reduces the amount of diversity of perspectives and people that we have in our life. And it reduces the opportunity to learn from each other, grow from each other, challenge your own beliefs, and think about what other ways there are to be a human.
If you're able to have these conversations and they're really constructive with your friends, then I think that's incredible. Assuming that their beliefs aren't, actually harmful or toxic, then having different political ideas or opinions, if this is something that you can talk about with your friends, surely shows the strength of the friendship, right? Being able to have those, like that really healthy dialogue. But I think the issue is when maybe you have different ideas and opinions and beliefs and then you can't talk about it.
Which I think is so different when you consider like political being personal. So if you are in a minority group or if there's something that's like genuinely harming you in your real life, of course you're not going to keep people around who are racist, homophobic, like genuinely don't think that you have a right to live or have rights. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's why it will be so dependent on who you are, the context of where your beliefs have come from, and whether or not you're able to have a conversation around them. Because like I've got friends who have grown up from regional areas in Australia who have maybe more conservative beliefs, and then they've moved to Melbourne and completely had to challenge those, and now they don't have those beliefs anymore. But imagine if I was like going to write them off straight away, they wouldn't be one of my best friends now. Yeah. I think that's so important, is being able to have these conversations. And to me, I've had friends who can't have those conversations, and that's given me the ick, and then those friendships have ended. Yep, 100%. Based on the way that they've handled.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think personally, like, I could do more in terms of diversifying like my bubble. I'm very much like, feel like sometimes I'm in a bit of an echo chamber, and then you like maybe go traveling and you meet someone and you're like, oh, that was so refreshing to hear this point of view, and I completely understand where you're coming from, the context of where you live and how you've grown up. Personally, I'm like, I should probably do more to like meet more people and diversify that. So we asked you on our Instagram as well, how do you manage an ick in your friendship? Do you call them out on it, or do you kind of just like let it go? 38% of you said call them out. 62% said leave it alone. Where do you stand on this? Are you kind of like I'm going to pull you up on it?
Oh, it depends what it is.
Yeah.
I've had instances in my friendships where I have, but only when I felt like it wasn't like necessarily an ick, but it was like something that I wanted to, I guess, gently call out. Whether that was like behavior or something that I was like, hey, that's probably not a great thing to say, or have you ever thought about XYZ or whatever. But I think if it's a small ick, like they can't tie a fucking shoelace, like
the gulping.
Of course I'm leaving it alone. The gulping,
the water. I called you out on it.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly just don't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, the small icks, I'm like, that's fine. Even the big ones, yeah, it really depends on what they are and where it sits. It's like, I obviously have high standards to what I hold, like partners and friends and people who are really close to me in my life based on like my morals and values and how I show up in the world. And so if there's something that really clashes with that, then like I'm probably going to have a conversation about it.
Well, I think most people would agree with you on that. Like we had so many DMs of people being like, yep, I'm calling out on the major things. And we got this voice memo from Rob who reckons if you don't, you're basically condoning the behavior.
You don't have to necessarily agree with their viewpoints, and having opposing or different views in a friendship group is in fact really healthy. But I think if you acknowledge those differences in a way that can be open and trusting and promotes discussion, naturally, sometimes, of course, our friendship groups can be a bit of a vacuum, and that's only natural for that to happen. But if you don't call out any ill-informed opinions to start with, then you're condoning that viewpoint.
So basically, like, your silence is violence at that point, which is hectic. And it's sort of true. Like, I feel like I've dropped a friend over like an ethical kind of disagreement, and it was really, really tough. I feel good for it though, because I was like, I want to keep good people around me, and it was kind of reflecting on how I stand up for myself and show up in the world.
Yeah, and I think the hardest part of going through that and why the ending of that friendship can hurt so much is because there's someone that you've known for a long time, right? A lot of history. And this is something that Ash went through. She had a long-term friend for over a decade. She helped raise her kids. They considered each other sisters, and now they live in different states. They met up recently for a weekend, and she was shocked at who she's become. And so she's kind of in this right now, and she's like writing a letter and deciding whether or not she wants to send it to her friend.
The differences were just so apparent down to every little thing. I was actually appalled by her behaviour. I work in homelessness, and we walked past someone sleeping on the street, and I said, that just breaks my heart. And her comment was, don't you think they just bring it upon themselves? I was mortified. There was just, she was just judging everybody's outfits, just really acting like this stuck-up snob, which I don't know why. That was 2 weeks ago. We haven't actually spoken. I've written her the letter. I don't think I'm going to give it to her because I don't think that she will see anything wrong with her behaviour. We've gone from being like sisters to now I don't even want to speak to her. It's really quite sad, and I'm sort of coming to terms with the fact that maybe we won't have that friendship. I'm really close with her kids. I'm close with her partner, her sisters, the whole family. So I feel like I'm possibly going to be grieving the loss of that. Or I could reach out to her, let her know how I feel, and maybe we can work through it. But like, is it worth it if we're just so different?
The history, it's really, really hard. Like, if you've gone through so many things and with somebody, the thought of breaking up with them is really, really tough. On the contrary of that, like there were some people who did DM us and thought, you know what, history doesn't matter in this. It's more about quality over quantity. And this is what Kim had to say.
I had a friendship for years and years. We were like best friends, lived in each other's pockets basically, until I turned 18 and realised it was actually a really toxic relationship, and that was probably the turning point for me to look at not only that friendship but all of those friendships and realise that the length of time does not at all equal quality. And I think reflecting back, I grieved the friendship, and it's not that I grieved that person, it's more that I grieved that closeness that I had with someone, but also leaving that friendship behind has allowed so much more growth and more opportunities to spend time with people who have the same values as me and care for me.
That's exactly how I feel. I have a few friends that are from high school, and I love them, but we have just grown in such different directions. And it might not necessarily be the ick, but it's just so obvious when we catch up. And I feel like for a lot of friendships that are really long and have history, you end up just catching up and reminiscing on the memories of like the past and your friendship and people you know. And you don't actually feel like you're getting anything new or growing as a person out of this friendship.
Yeah.
And I also think they're taking up space, which is sounds so brutal to say, but they're taking up space from you potentially making new connections with new people that align better with the person you're growing into right now.
Yeah. When you've grown and changed in values, like let's say with high school friends, you're like, let's beat that dead horse 1,000 times. Sure, like it's fun, but like really like good, beautiful friendships grow with you and like you develop and you
make new memories.
Yeah, like you make new memories. Last year, my friends and I we made like a bit of a challenge for ourselves and we've kind of forgotten about it. So we'll try and get back on. But we were like, we need to do things that are like making new memories and not just like the same thing of like catching up for a coffee or a beer or like whatever. We're like, we went bowling one time and like made new memories at like the rink. And then I think we just tried to do like activity-based things to make memes. But it was really, really good.
It makes such a difference. And yeah, I think it's depending on what the ick is, like people will have to make that decision, right? Phoebe's saying people are too quick to write relationships off over small annoyances. And then Zola saying, I'm struggling with whether an irritation is a symptom of close friendship or worth addressing.
I kind of relate to these two actually, especially with Phoebe. Like I think that we're in this like era of like individualism, and if something doesn't serve you, then you can just like let it go and you can like close the door and you don't have to go out and see your friends even though it's like their 30th and you're really tired and you're feeling a bit anxious and blah blah blah. Everyone wants the village, but no one wants to be a villager. And I think the thing that Zola has identified here is that when you are close friends with people, like there are going to be friction points. You are going to be annoyed and nothing's ever going to suit your perfect life and how you're feeling. But that's why you need to show up for people. And so I think I definitely think it's a close friendship like symptom. I think when you need to address it is when you feel like shafted or gross or uncomfortable. And this is kind of what Beck had to say.
Everyone has icks, but if something a friend says or does that makes you feel a bit gross or uncomfortable, I think it's critical to address it.
Okay, something else that we wanted to explore, which was brought up in the DM, was do we hold our friends to different standards versus the people we're dating or romantic partners? Well, this was something that we did poll you about. We said, should we be holding our friends to the same standard as our relationship partners? And 63% of you said yes.
Costa saying you should have high standards for both friends and partners. Accountability for everyone is a must. Nama saying you should hold your friends to the same standard as relationships, but it's much harder to do so, I think. Yeah, like what we were talking about at the start of this, it's like in reality, your partner does feel like on a different level, but for some reason, when a friend does something, especially if they've been in your life for a long time, you're literally like, I pretend I do not see it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we'll let that one go. Like, we'll let that one slide. But if a partner did it, you'd be like, oh my God, red flags. I need to have like a debrief with the mates and be like, they did this. Like, I don't know if they're the right person for me. It's a big deal.
It feels so much more personal and like they're such a huge reflection of who you are and like what you're showing the world based on who you choose as a partner. And I can kind of relate to this. Like my best friend Brendan, who I lived with for like 5 years, it was so funny because there was so much stuff that I just let him get away with. And it was really funny because when I started dating my partner Darcy, I would really get on top of like him not messaging me that much or being like slow to reply or like being kind of MIA. But Brendan famously is a bit MIA over text. Like he's pretty shit at replying.
Oh, I'm still waiting 3 weeks later.
I know, 3 weeks later.
Hello.
But I would never ever call him out about that. You know what I mean? And I just kind of go, oh, well, that's Brendan.
Which is so funny because it's in like direct contradiction of what everyone said in our poll about your friends are a reflection of you and the standard you accept. So I'm literally like, well, what is it, guys? Like if we're letting the friends get away with it, why are we letting the partners not get away with it?
I think it comes down to, I was trying to think about why. And I think it just comes down to because I'm like, I've known Brendan for so long and it is genuinely just who he is. And it's different. I feel like it's just different when you're like starting to build a relationship with a romantic partner because you want to set the tone early over what you do and don't accept, or what you value out of a romantic relationship. And so I think you kind of have the ability to build from the ground up. Whereas like with Brendan, I'm like, oh, well, he's always kind of been a bit flaky over text or whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of like build a boyfriend, build a girlfriend, build a they friend. Like you are starting from scratch, so you want to aim high with that stuff.
Yeah. And if for some reason it's way more triggering.
Yeah.
When it's like your partner.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but if a friend does it, I'm just a bit like, oh, well, he'll get back to me.
Well, thank God we have our listeners here to give us some theories, because you came in thick and fast with like why you think there are different standards. Let's start off with Beck, right? So she sent us a DM and said, I do think we treat friends differently to partners, but I think that's a healthy thing too. So we were like, can you please expand on this? We need more context. So this is what she sent us.
In the context of this, I've been with my partner for 18 months and I've got friendships that span years and continents and decades right back through to school. So there's like characteristics that I think are very similar that I have standards for in my friendships and in my like partnered relationship or previous relationships. Things like kindness, loyalty. So I think there's similarities in the standards that I'd hold them to, but I definitely would in a way like kind of treat my partner relationships different to friendships, and even my friendships within my friendships different based off how long I've known the person, my personal history or family. Like there's maybe like sometimes a bit of grace I might give my partner because they've not known me through those, I don't know, earlier years of my life or certain contextual things. So, but then I'd expect my partner to prioritize time in a different way to me than I would a friend. So yeah, that's a little bit about why I think it's a healthier approach to be able to kind of like, I guess, compartmentalize those standards a bit and give people a bit of grace and kind of, in a way, like kind of have more established boundaries and not kind of over expect from friends that you would from a partner.
I really relate to that. The whole like different expectations from different friends, because within my close friends, I've got friends that are the friends that I have fun with and party with. There's friends that I open up with more. And then there's friends that are like, they all hold different needs. And so therefore, like, I think I'm a bit more lenient with the party friends than I would be with the more like vulnerable, open up friends. In the fact that I like probably wouldn't call out the party friends. I'd just be a bit like, oh, well, like, you know, they're meeting that need.
Yeah.
But then I think like we expect our partners to hold all needs.
Well, that's interesting because like quite a few people I felt like were putting their partner in this like kind of everything category. And like you said, different friends serve different needs and there's different types of friends. And even what Beck was like, she was like, there's different friends in the friends of the friends that I would treat differently, so you can get really, really meta with it. And this is actually something that Haley sent us a voice memo about.
With a romantic partner, that person is your stability, that person is your rock, that person is your foundation. Having something that you deeply fundamentally disagree with in that relationship is a lot harder to build from. But you're allowed to have as many friends as you have capacity for, whereas most monogamous people just have that one person that they rely on.
And I don't know if you remember her voice talking about the diversity of friendships. Same girl, Haley at the very top. So that kind of aligns and makes sense for me, her saying that. And yeah, you can kind of cherry pick the things that you like out of your friends, but your partner is like this one person and you tend to go home to them if you're living with them. But in general, you're sort of spending a lot of time with a partner. So having that different or higher expectation kind of does make sense in that way.
That also comes down to the relationship romantic, like the love hierarchy, right? Like we value romantic love and our romantic partners above, like culturally, above friendships, which is, Alyssa says, friends are treated as transient, less strict standards, more nuance around types of friends. And Nick saying, I think more people are accepting of having different levels of intimacy with platonic relationships than romantic or sexual ones. Yeah, I think that's something that like we're trying to challenge, right? Like I think it's worth thinking about like why do we put higher standards on the people we date, but our friends, we kind of are a bit like, oh, well, like I'll just slowly drift for them over time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or like they gave me the ick and like we're not really aligning anymore politically, so I might just like no longer invest in this friendship anymore.
Yeah, I think in general, like in the zeitgeist, I think we're talking a lot more about friendships. We've been noticing it in terms of your DMs and things that we're gravitating towards as well. We're like, that hierarchy is being slightly dismantled thanks to people like us, but also for you as well. And like, I think that's probably why we got this DM. If we go back to it at the start, what we was talking about is like, am I being too fussy by applying dating principles to them? I would miss them a lot, but I don't know what to do when they say something and that feeling hits. I think it's obviously always a case-by-case situation, but I think it's worth having conversations with friends like that, especially if you've DM'd us and you're like, I'm actually kind of almost ready to let them go. And I think going back to what you were saying about like, if you can't have the healthy conversation and walk away and still be like, I appreciate you being different to me, then maybe that's your sign. Like, I don't know.
It might be the sign that you're outgrowing your friends.
It could be.
And like, if we think about this DM, they're saying like, is it a sign for me to make them smaller part of my life, or am I being too fussy? Well, yeah, if you've tried to have the conversation, which is something that we've kind of said in this pod, and you don't really feel like you're getting anywhere, and you really are just misaligning on like political opinions, lifestyle and attitudes to work, like you might genuinely just be outgrowing your friend, and that's completely normal.
Yeah.
And maybe it is making them a smaller part of your life and trying to open up space, like the space that they're taking up, you can then open up to new friends who do align with you better.
Yeah.
But it is just so individual depending on like, yeah, some people are like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I care. So I have friends who care so much more about the history.
Yeah.
Being like, but I've been friends with them for 20 years. I don't really care that they said this racist thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like that you said you can make the friend into a smaller part of your life. It's like you don't actually have to like break up with them. That's like worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Which we've obviously heard in this story, like in this episode, a lot of people wanted to or had to do that or are thinking about it, like Ash. But yeah, it's really, really hard. And I think what I loved so much about this episode is like seeing so many different points of views and like pointing out contradictions and being like, yeah, but why do we do this? But then we do this. Like, this is going to be a question that we'll probably be asking for a long time and we might not have an answer for, but it's good to talk about.
Yeah. And I really, really think we should do an episode on friendship breakups.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your DMs.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll see you on Instagram.
Bye.
Bye.